was seeing it as better than nothing, that with a
Mm-mm.
large audience,
That's
or at
dangerous,
least,
man.
well, it is if they are organized opposition and they're a
No, no, no,
lightning
no, no, no,
rod.
no, no. It's dangerous. Let me tell you why. It's dangerous.
Is it not a
I'll give you.
continuum or a spectrum, though, that there's
No,
some
no, no,
very
no,
bad
no, no,
organized up?
no.
No?
Those people are actually holding up change. If you look at a time axis of change,
Oh boy, myself and Dr. Shiva, presidential candidate, and a lot more, really got into it in this long format conversation. He has incredible ideas and insights. We debated quite a bit, as you kind of picked up there, but overall, it's an extraordinary conversation. And I'll just add one extra thing, that at the end of this conversation, I've included his 15-minute Shatter the Swarm video, where he goes through the world and how it works. And regardless of your opinions, that one is a must watch. Oh, just one last thing. First 15 minutes or so of our conversation, Dr. Shiva is just getting into it really, but from then on it gets really hot and bothered. So enjoy. Hey guys, very privileged today. I am indeed, because I have Dr. Shiva on the podcast, and he obviously has massive achievements, inventor of email, though that's a little controversial, it appears, and 4 degrees from MIT, no less. But I'm going to get straight into it. Dr. Shiva, delighted to have you here today.
good to be here. Look, on the question of email, there is the facts are black and white. The controversy was created by the swarm because the facts about the invention of email defy their narratives that all great innovations must come from the military industrial academic complex. When you look at the facts, I created it in a medical college. I created it when I was 14 years old. I was the one who wrote 50,000 lines of code to convert every feature of the interoffice mail system, the paper-based system, inbox, outbox, folders, into its electronic version. I was the one who named it email, and I have the US copyright. There's absolutely no controversy. They had to create a controversy because uh, the facts of the invention of email in Newark, New Jersey, by a 14-year-old boy defy their narratives, which is all great innovation must be anointed by the swarm. So they have a serious fucking problem with the invention of email. The same incident occurred with Philo Farnsworth, who created TV as a 14-year-old kid in Franklin, Idaho. They tried to destroy him for 60 years, and eventually there's a statue of him. Now, my issue has the fact that it was done outside of the bounds of the swarm, and I have to deal with the race issue, which someone who has not walked in this color of skin may not fully appreciate. But I see this as both a race issue. By the way, when I talk about race, the biggest racists, believe it or not, are many of the biggest racists are brown-skinned Indians. Okay? Who are the ones who don't want to believe that innovation could occur by a fellow brown-skinned guy, because they've been the one who've been imbued by white supremacy for 300 years by colonialism. Okay? So the issue of the invention of email, they had to manufacture a controversy. They were saying uppercase email is different than lowercase email. And as Noam Chomsky, the great linguist, said, he goes, this is a child throwing tantrums. My Wikipedia page was locked for 2 years. So the problem they have with email is I'm still alive. You know, I'm not a good Indian who shakes his head and says, okay, master, right? So they have a serious problem. There is no controversy except the one they fabricated. So we should put controversy in double quotes.
Yeah, and I guess I should have done that absolutely, because there's been so many examples of this, and yours is just one. Always snowstorm, and twist and obfuscate anything that threatens, as you call it, the swarm. But you know what? Yeah, I agreed with your people that they were asking, well, what topic would you like to go through? And I suggested, well, globalism and the threat of globalism to the future health and prosperity of America, which is a big presidential candidate question. So I thought we'd just let you talk on that, and maybe I'll throw in my odd thought too.
Yeah, so I think the best way to discuss this, Ivor, is to recognize that I came up with I try to, as an educator, make things easy for people to understand. So you have this complexity of ways that I could look at the world. You know, from an engineering standpoint, from a very abstract standpoint, but I like to make things accessible. That's really where the innovation is. So when we launched our campaign for president, we had to make this easily accessible to people. So one of the graphs I want to share with you, if everyone should take time to go to the website shivaforpresident.com. And if you go to that website, what you'll find is something quite important that everyone should really appreciate and be a part of. Let me bring that up here. I think you can see my screen, right? You can see my screen?
Here it comes.
Yeah, so if we go here, this website is important because what you see here is that this is a Shiva for President website, and we made it accessible to everyone. So obviously people can volunteer, they can get our merchandise, shop, all those standard things a website has. But one of the important things, we have this free download section. And in this free download section, Ivor, we have this flyer. And in this single one-page flyer, I think you can still see it, right? I'm bringing it up. It's a PDF. Anyone on the planet can download this flyer. We also have the Shattering the Swarm version, but it says the lesser of two evils is killing our children. By the way, Booby Kennedy, who's part of the swarm, steals all of our language because he was created by the deep state to make sure when a true bottoms-up movement came, that he would sucker them back into the swarm. But here is one of the things people need to understand, that this flyer hits it right between the eyes. If you look at this graph right here, this starts from 1980 till today. The United States lifespan is going upside down. If you have a child in the United States today, your child is going to have a shorter lifespan than you. And you can see the global industrial thing is also curving down. Okay, it's just a matter of time. So I just want everyone to consider this very simple thing. We could argue on all sorts of things, but the bottom line is this is not my data. This is coming from Kaiser Permanente, one of the largest insurance companies in the world. If you have a child today in the US, your son or daughter is going to live shorter than you. How is that progress? That's regression. Who caused this? Well, it's not the vaccines caused this. This has been going on since 1980. It is the policies of the swarm. You know, I'd rather give a very scientific definition of quote unquote globalism and all this. It's the swarm. Swarm is a very important technical term to refer to the decentralized nature of these people. They're not centralized. They too understand decentralization. So they're a multiracial aristocracy, geographically distributed, with sometimes diverse interests, but they come together to move in a direction. They may even move competingly different, but they ultimately, they're against the 8 billion of us. And you can see this. They are depopulating the world in a very fundamental way. And you can't, whether you think it's a conspiracy or not, these were done by the policies of the swarm. Started with John Kennedy, who's the one in the United States who passed the 1962 Vaccination Act, which basically said it was one-size-fits-all medicine. And then his other brother, Ted Kennedy, another Kennedy, who killed a woman here in Cambridge, is the one who protected big pharma companies from this one-size-fits-all medicine. And then the other fool, Booby Kennedy, who the swarm has put forward as the absolute charlatan of quote-unquote medical freedom, is the one who said he wants full vaccination of all Americans, right? So our movement, my work, focuses on this particular graph. And behind that graph, you come to the conclusion we need a systems overhaul. Okay? A systems overhaul means no one should be trusting any of these people who are responsible for the academics, the elites, Hollywood, celebrities, Kennedys, Bidens, Trumps, Bushes, Clintons. They've all been part of this. So that's where everyone needs to just look at that graph. And if you care about life, you have to now face this squarely, and you can't bullshit your way saying, well, you know, we can do this little thing. You can't. Look where it's going. So who is the swarm? If you go to shattertheswarm.com, I did a 1-hour video, then I did a 15-minute version. Every child, every family should watch that video. I made it very accessible. It takes very complex engineering system science, and in a whiteboard, I explain it to people. I think it's got 100 million views. You know, even in the midst of all the shadow banning I have, it's got a couple million views on Twitter even, okay? It's gone out there. It's oozed out. The work I do, the movement that we've built is like molasses. It moves with viscosity slowly, but it's very, very sticky. Once you feel and touch our movement, you can't get rid of it because it's pure truth. So Shatter the Swarm is there. So you can, and then on the upper right, it says, who is our campaign? Why my run for president is the only way to shatter the swarm. And then fundamentally, we give you a video that you can go watch on Truth, Freedom, Health. And you can really understand what this means to shatter the swarm and how we do it. And then we invite people every Thursdays at 11 a.m. or at 8 p.m., because we're a global movement, to come to our events and learn. So for example, yesterday we did healthcare. Next week, we'll talk about the environment, but we give people solutions. Many people, unfortunately, on the internet are grifter podcasters who'll do interviews with me, but they don't want to take any action. It's just getting views and clicks. So wherever you are, including yourself, Ivor, you know, we have a significant movement in the United Kingdom. A lot of people there. So people can go get these little, you know, very simple bumper stickers, which get across this message. In the United States, this is for the person who wants to be the lazy activist. You can put one of these bumper stickers, which is available on Shiva for President, on the back of your car. Now, why do I say this? Because for most people to peel a bumper sticker off and put it on your car is truly a commitment, because your neighbors are going to see it, your friends are going to see it. So people can talk all the shit they want, but are you willing to put that bumper sticker on your car and take a position? That's what I tell this bumper sticker is about. It's about you've taken a position. You've not merely been a talker. And anyway, the Shatter the Swarm video and these flyers are converted to every language on the planet. And our movement is growing globally. It's not only the United States, but we call it the Truth, Freedom, and Health Warrior Scholar Program. First, you have to understand the physics. That shattertheswarm.com video took me 50 years to draw. I do it with ease, you know, did it in one shot, but I could not have done that without getting the engineering training, without being an activist, without interlinking many systems of knowledge. So if people are willing to let go of their ego and they actually want to do something, number one, go watch that video. Get one of these bumper stickers, put it on, okay? You're probably spending a lot of money on stupid things. These are like $5. Put it on. And then come to one of our open houses that we do. We do these open houses every Thursdays. It's a lot. You know, yesterday was nearly an 18-hour day, because we do it for all of Europe in the morning. You know, it goes from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m., you know, and then it goes from 8 p.m. Yesterday went to midnight, 4 hours. And people are like, wow, Dr. Shiva really gives a lot of his time, because I'm serious about building a movement. So that's what this is about. One is to understand who the enemy is. If you truly want to understand them, watch the Swarm video. Because many people try to put the enemy as one organization. What the Swarm video reveals, it's a integration of multiple systems of organizations. The 100 university professors, or the university administrators who run the major universities from Oxford to MIT to Stanford, that's one group. The major leaders of countries and their advisors and consultants. The major heads of media companies, right? The heads of major CEOs of companies. And there's a huge interconnection between all these people. Now, the front end of these people, the people that you see, are their puppets that we call the politicians. And they are also very clever in that they create their own controversy. They have the obvious enemies of people, what I call the obvious establishment. You know, they're Rishi Sunaks and the Bidens and the Clintons and all that, right? The Bushes. But the way that they bamboozle people, this swarm, is they must have their not so obvious establishment, the fake controlled opposition. So they manufacture these people because they want people to always come back to them. Booby Kennedy is an example of that. Complete scumbag, created by the swarm. You look at Trump, Bernie Sanders, the Labour Party people in England, right? They act like they're for the people, but ultimately their goal is to make sure that if you start raising your conscience, you say things are fucked up, that you don't want to join Truth, Freedom, Health, and build a bottoms-up movement, stand independently, learn this physics. You want to say, well, yeah, I got to choose the lesser of two evils. I got to support one of these fools. And that's the trap. So I've had to do the dirty job of hitting these people really hard, Ivor, and losing these unconscious, incompetent people who just want to think Trump is going to fix it for them. When Trump is a Zionist hoodlum, Booby Kennedy's a Zionist hoodlum, Biden is a Zionist hoodlum. They're all Zionist hoodlums. As I said, they're all Zionist because they have to suck to survive. And if they don't, and that is, to me, that's a very important set of words, Zionist that I coined to break people's mental hangups why they don't use these words. It must be used because all of them were absolutely fine. They talk about Booby Kennedy talks about helping the children. Well, you want to go bomb the people in, you're absolutely fine with Israel going and wiping out all the kids in Palestine. You say? So we've brought up these contradictions, and like slow moving viscous molasses, it is hitting people's consciousness. And we have to do less and less work because people are saying, shit, what Dr. Shiva is saying is pure truth. Do I really want to just kill my children? What are we actually going to do? And we must have a systems overhaul. In order to have a systems overhaul, you must, first of all, decide you want to do it. You want to get on your own 2 feet. We support you in that. We teach you the science of systems. We teach you how to look at the world, to see things as they are. And then we give you a program to get on the ground. Hey, take a flyer and hand it out. See what it takes to do that. Oh, it's easy. No, it isn't. You have to go out now in the physical world, meet somebody, have conversations, not just be on social media, getting views and clicks. That's the real world. So we put together an entire framework, as I say, how to shatter the swarm.
Excellent, Dr. Shiva. And that is the thing. It requires moral courage to actually go out and take a stand. And one thing that's frustrated me over the last 4 years is I'm inundated with people when I go to conferences saying, great work you're doing, but, you know, in my position or with my job, I couldn't really say it. And look, that's okay. I'm not going to call them cowards, but we have a big dearth of people who will put it on the line and say what they think and stand over it. It's a massive issue. Now, that phrase you used there, it's a slightly vulgar for YouTube. I might have to bleep it. But I do believe in saying it as it is and using strong language to wake people up. So
those words, in my views, are scientific terms. First of all, we're not. Zionism is equivalent to Nazism, equivalent to Brahmanism. It is this concept of a small set of people are superior to the mass of other people. This was a concept of the Indian caste system. This was a concept of the Nazism, right? Zionism, furthermore, is anti-Semitic. Zionists collaborated with Nazis to butcher Jews. Example was the Warsaw Ghetto. Just do a little bit of your own research. Just like the Nazis needed Zionism and Zionism needed Nazis to grow. Every time a Jew was attacked viciously by Nazism, which, by the way, it grew the Zionist movement, and Zionists actually supported the butchering of Jews. You just need to do a little bit of research. You'll see it. It goes hand in glove. And secondarily, you do not have to be Jewish to be a Zionist. In fact, 70 million, the preponderance, the overwhelming majority of Zionists are white evangelical Christians, Black evangelical Christians in the South, who believe in this eschatological view of Armageddon and all this nonsense that was just manufactured. And furthermore, the guy who created Zionism, a political ideology, just manufactured it. Theodore Herzl was an atheist. So you have to put all these things together. That Zionism has nothing to do with Judaism. It was imposed on the Jewish people. It was a political ideology supported by the swarm of British colonialism because they needed that region in that what they, called Israel. And by the way, there were many options for Zionism to call other places Israel. Uganda was one of their choices. Argentina was one of their choices. And a lot of people need to go study this history. It just so happened that place was very strategic to the British, because from that standpoint, they could control all sorts of oil flow. They could execute. And that's what this was. So the Jewish people have been taken advantage of by the Zionists, who butchered Jews with the Nazis. So that's why we use the word Zionist. Now, why do we use the word kafir? Again, very important word, because those people who support Zionism actually are puppets, beggars, and servants to them. Because the United States dollar, if you just study basic economics, the United States dollar is no longer backed by gold or petroleum. It is backed by F-15 fighters. It is backed by aircraft carriers. It is backed by nuclear weapons. And it needs that region in the Middle East where they could conduct war. And that's the purpose that the police state, the military state of Israel serves. It serves U.S. imperialism and Zionism, which are one and the same. And then furthermore, every person who gets elected in the United States must suck. So this is a technical term. So once you understand this, you will understand that's why that took off, because everyone knows this to be true. I just happen to say it in a very powerful and effective way and back it up with many, many videos which taught people the history. So you must call these people Zionist. You must teach your kids to call them that. It is not a vulgar term. It is a very powerful technical term that breaks people up, breaks the neural networks up in their brain, which have been fossilized to have the discussion, what I'm sharing with you. So it's a technical term.
A technical term that wields a certain amount of power, all right, especially in a polite dinner conversation, perhaps. But the Zionism, that distinction there, and everyone has different angles, though the history is pretty clear, I guess. Most normal people think that Zionism and Judaism or whatever, they're kind of synonymous. That it's kind of.
Oh yeah, that's what the Zionists did. If you go study the history of Zionism, when Herzl created it, manufactured in the late 1800s, using the work, I think, of a guy called Martin Heckler, who was a guy who created this random idiotic view of this Armageddon coming, and this is going to happen, and the Jews would return to the Holy Land. This was all manufactured, okay? Totally manufactured. And those people met, and that fantasy world served Herzl well. So when the Zionists were in Germany, they were a fringe group, which all the Jews actually hated. There were working class Jews in Germany. Remember, the Jewish people had been in Germany for 300 years. They were white Europeans. They didn't want to leave Germany. They considered it their home. They wanted to fight fascist Hitler, who was, by the way, supported by the globalists, by the swarm, because Hitler was necessary, because everyone, if you study history, knew there was going to be a massive revolution of working people rising bottoms up. And everyone in the world knew it was going to be likely in Germany. Think about what I'm saying. If you study history in the late 1800s and 1900s, all eyes were on Germany, because the German workers were a very class-conscious group of workers. People believed politically that the first workers' revolution, bottoms up, would occur in Germany. So given, and if a workers' revolution occurred in Germany, then would occur in the United States, it would occur in France. So in order to cap that off, cut it off the head, they supported Hitler. Hitler was supported by the industrialists, by the imperialists, to stop that movement. And when Hitler went and killed Jews in different places, he was actually killing Jewish leaders who were leading these working class movements, true bottoms up movements. Remember, there's two sets of Jews: the bourgeois Jews and working class Jews, the Jews who were among working people. It was a predominance of the bourgeois Jews who were part of the Zionist movement. Very important to understand this. And Hitler wanted to attack the Jews because many Jewish leaders were quite conscious people. They were noble, service-oriented people, wanted to support the German working class. So the Zionists didn't like that. All right? Yeah. So Hitler and the Zionists were a symbiotic relationship to destroy the leadership of many of these very, very powerful bottoms-up Jewish leaders. And this is a very important thing to understand. So Zionism served Nazism, Nazism served Zionism. And it's all out there if you just do a little bit of studying. I just happen to have done it since 1980 because I was fascinated by this because I grew up in a caste system. I never liked the fact that a small set of people think they're better than all of us. And that's what I saw Zionism to be. So Zionism is actually racism in the service of imperialism. Zionism is racism in the service of imperialism. Nazism is racism in the service of imperialism. The caste system is racism in the service of imperialism. You see, you need racism to make one race feel better than the other. That's how you keep white people fighting black people. Or you tell the white people black people are dumb. We're going to pay them a little bit less. White guy feels better. And then you have people fighting, or you do the same with women and men. Sexism and racism are very powerful weapons created by the elites to make sure we all fight among each other. And that is the purpose of Zionism.
And all of this comes under the broad term of kind of totalitarianism, whether it's Stalin in Soviet Russia, whether it's Hitler or any of these other groups. It's all about creating an ant farm. And to have an ant farm, you need them all fighting with each other, because if they unite and look upwards, you got a problem. So that's really what's behind all of this. Now, I was going to ask you, Dr. Shiva.
Well, that is the one is Ivor control, but they equally have to create now after the 70s and 60s. What they learned is they create the fake heroes. So people will literally listen to this video and copy some of the things I say. They're creating fake anti-Zionists. You see, so the swarm is very clever. They have all this data. They say, holy shit, that Zionist cocksucker video went to 50 million people. That means the average person is understanding this. So they will have certain people appear to put anti-Zionist tweets, but they will never talk about something very fundamental. So what is the solution? They won't talk about the solution. The solution is we must build a bottoms-up movement. We must not cease fire now. Cease fire now is a pussyfooting slogan created by the Zionists. Look, I've been part of these movements since 1980 when I was a 17-year-old kid. There were all these Zionists would take over, the liberal Zionists would take over these movements. Something horrible would happen in Palestine or Gaza, and they would say, oh my God, ceasefire now. Now, what, unravel that slogan. What does it mean? Ceasefire now, but you can go back to fighting again. So it basically gave a open pass to Israel to bomb the shit out of the Palestinians. 2 steps forward, oh, ceasefire now. 2 steps forward, ceasefire now. And this has been going on. Meanwhile, they're advancing more and more and more. So the ceasefire now movement is a bogus anti-Zionist movement. It's not real. The right word is end the occupation of America by Zionism. If you want to chop the head off Zionism, you have to understand that the institutions in America, particularly the religious evangelical institutions, which represent nearly 70% of the 70 million Americans, are funded and controlled by Zionists and imperialists. There's a direct connection between the Zionist evangelical Christian pastors going right up to Mossad and going right up to Israel. So the vast majority of American, hardworking, white American working class people are brainwashed with this quote unquote Christian Zionism. That's what's happened. And this is why Trump and all these people take advantage of those people holding the Bible and acting like they care about Jesus. It's all bullshit. So this has happened. It's been methodically done. You just need to, there's enough stuff. You can look at the linkages between the Christian evangelical pastors. In our movement, we've had many, many Christians come after they've learned what Zionism is, and they've gotten challenged their pastors. So that's happening. There are a lot of good Christians who are saying, wait a minute, Christ wouldn't believe in this. What are you talking about? Christian Zionism is antithetical to being a Christian.
Yeah, and the thing is, you've got everything you've discussed already. Now, I tend to focus. I'm actually in the UK next week on a speaking tour of 7 events in 5 days, and I'm going to be going through a version of this, but it's the Dr. Jakob Nordengerd kind of story of the Rockefeller Brothers Fund in the 50s through to Kissinger, the World Economic Forum, the UN, the Club of Rome. And like you say, you can go on all day about it, all these organizations. But the way I've tried to reach people is with the fully documented from Rockefeller Archives, UN, fully documented stuff about Rockefeller kind of being the origin of our modern kind of main problems because they joined together through WEF and all the organizations I mentioned and many more. And behind the scenes, I'm sure what you've mentioned. But would you see this kind of corporate, efficient kind of monster that's grown, that's embodied by WHO, UN, through to Rockefeller Foundation, and indeed the CIA funded the Harvard kind of conferences that Rockefeller set up with Kissinger, which was the start of this modern phase of our problem. How much would you focus on that, which is very identifiable to people? You know, when we talk about
Let me
religious.
ask you, Ivor. I find a lot of people talk about Rockefeller and all those things. The
Mm,
Trump people talk about Rockefeller. Oh, WEF and Rockefeller, right?
mm,
But they're afraid to talk about the here and now. You see, you have to look at the swarm here and now. This is like, unfortunately, history is, everyone knows about the Rockefellers and the Carnegies, and there's not just Rockefeller. It was a whole swarm
yeah, a
of
lot of
people in
them.
the 20s. But I am of the opinion is what are you going to do now? So if the call to action is Rockefeller, 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 well, Rockefeller's dead. What are you going to do now? So it's very important to look in to update this with now. And I find a lot of these influencers do not want to talk about now because they need the Trump views. You see, Alex Jones
Yeah,
is like that. Okay. Alex
right.
Jones, Alex Jones, Fucker Carlson, you can go down the list, Joe Rogan, are the neo media establishment that is being created. And that neo media establishment that is coming up in opposition uh, to the fact that the old legacy media is breaking down. So the swarm is saying, okay, we need new people to act like they're against the establishment, but they're one and the same. If you talk to David Knight, who used to work with Alex, Alex knows Trump's full of shit, but he'll go online and promote Trump because he needs to sell his vitamin products. So these influencers all have a economic interest not to speak the truth about the here and now. If you're truly against the Rockefellers, you have to expose Trump. You have to expose fucking Kennedy. But a lot of these people don't want to do that because they want their followers. Well, they're saying some good things. They're saying some good things. So I would say, the knowledge needs to be updated to the here and now. The modern swarm, the modern evil is the not so obvious establishment. It is easy to see the Rockefellers. It is easy to see the Clintons. Is it easy to see the obvious devils? But it's very, very important to understand the devils who come in sheep's clothing. Because without that, is frankly, I'm not that interested because it's just sort of, it's just like getting people hyped up and da 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 da. But you have to talk about the practicality of why the world does not change and why that graph is going like this. It is the not so obvious establishment. It is the Gandhis. It is the Martin Luther Kings, not the Malcolm X's, who's never discussed. It is these people that the swarm is projected as heroes. And the problem is people who claim they want to expose the establishment do not talk about these people. And if you don't talk about them, you don't expose them, your silence is deadly because it is saying, I support that. And to me, this is a litmus test. Are you real or are you grifting? You see what I'm saying? And a lot of
I
people are speaking truth. It's easy to speak truth. It's issues. When did you speak the truth? And are you speaking the truth to move people in a particular direction? Or is it to just speak the truth at that point in time, which was relevant, 2 years ago? You see what I'm saying? But you
oh, I
didn't say,
do.
yeah. So this is very important.
Yeah, it's a very interesting conversation because I kind of don't really trust anyone after the last few years in a sense, but people are on a continuum of my respect or my trust. So with some of these like Trump characters and Kennedy, etc., if they're predominantly saying the right thing and the right messages, I'm okay with that because I don't
Well,
even have a.
this is a problem. You see,
It's you
this
are
is this is
pointing
why you
out.
have to go. You have to understand the politics, Ivor, because you're promoting, and don't take this personally. evil, because there are three stools here. The issue is, do you want to build a movement and change the world? There have been people who just say, quote unquote, truth. Academics do it, right? But Noam Chomsky would go like this and tell you this entire thing of how everything's being fucked. People would leave depressed. Okay? Are you, first of all, telling the truth? Okay. That's only one part of the stool. A lot of people tell the truth who are assholes and who are against movements. Seriously, you got to get this.
Yeah.
I've been at this at a long time because I'm actually interested in liberating the world because of the journey I went through. To other people, this is just theoretical. They haven't actually suffered. So now doing podcasts and this kind of thing is a vehicle to make money. That's not my interest.
True. And
okay, Joe Rogan, it's telling the truth at the right time when it can have effect, and to the right people to mobilize people. You have to tell the truth, and you have to tell it at the right time, and you have to use it to mobilize people. Three things. If you're just telling the truth all day, which is what fucker Carlson did, when we shared with him everything in 2020, he concealed the truth. You see? So it's called a limited hangout. Have you heard of that term?
I have indeed, and I've always been concerned about that. And I've kind of made a decision to lock in on what I know I can defend is convincing to people and wakes them up. And that's why some of these
Wakes them up
characters
to what advancement?
Well, I just have a fundamental belief, as you touched on, that the only thing we have is grassroots, because you can forget about the puppeticians, because nearly every one of them now is pretty much aligned to some of the powers, the WEF, the UN, or the EU, or the Commission. They all report right to the top, not to the people who vote them in. I'm speaking from an Irish or English context for sure. And you just can't, we only have grassroots. So I agree with you 100% there. I guess I've just been less focused on the potential organized opposition types and more focused on what I perceived as the nucleus, the management kind of nucleus. Like
but this is where you got to watch a Swarm video. Have you watched it?
I watched a bit of it, loved it, and immediately propelled it out there. But I will admit, I didn't go to the end.
You have to watch it.
Okay.
Because if you don't watch it, you're going to be part of the problem, Ivor. And I'm telling you this, meaning unconsciously. Okay? The Swarm has they have a left hook and a right hook. Okay? The left hook is the obvious establishment, open fascism, the organizations you talked about. They learned over the last 100 years that when you just go pound people on the head, that people may react and you may create martyrs. So what they did starting in the 60s was they actually created fake martyrs, fake people who speak the words of grassroots movements, words who share the truth of grassroots movements, but never at the right time. They make movies. They, in fact, will give them Academy Awards. So they keep the masses thinking, ooh, the establishment, ooh, they did this exposing movie. Ooh, that professor wrote this article, like Chomsky. Okay? And what ends up happening is people keep having faith to make sure a systems overhaul never takes place. And you got to understand this. So it is easy to expose the obvious establishment. Any dumb fuck can do that. Sorry. Anyone can do that. But it takes great courage and being unpopular at the right time to say the right things. So in 2020, I'll give you an example. March of 2020 was a critical time for leaders. I was the first one who called out the pandemic, gave people a solution, vitamin D3, quercetin, zinc. Booby fucking Kennedy promoted lockdowns. Are you aware of that?
I know there's a huge debate going on now because so many people who supported originally and then turned against it, and you've got this war.
No. I'm giving you something very specific.
Oh, well, okay. Kennedy came out and he supported a lot of things. And Chomsky, just as an interesting case in point, I couldn't believe I saw the video of Chomsky saying people who don't take a vaccine should be put up the top of a mountain.
but I'm saying the swarm
Yeah.
has two wings. And if you only are attacking the left wing, you're going to get stabbed in the back. And if you don't, you have to voice your exposing of these people. Otherwise, you're part of complicity to this. And this is a state of consciousness that must be understood. Otherwise, I can't take people seriously, man. I just can't.
Yeah, it's tricky because people have said to me about Musk, for instance. Now I know Musk has, I believe, an
But
estranged
it's not,
son.
Ivor, it's actually not tricky. The end goal is, what's the goal? Is the goal to get views and clicks, or is it to build a movement to change things? There's a
But I,
point in people's lives, they have to ask this fundamental question. Do you support the way the world is as it is, or do you want to change it? If you go to the latter, then you are given, if you say, I want to change the world, typically the swarm gives you only two options to change the world: run for office or participate in some legal world. It does not want you to build a true bottoms up movement. Now, what they have done is they've created fake leaders. They can see the trajectory with social media. They can see that the white American working class in the United States was done with Obama. 57% of people voted for Trump, voted for Obama. So they created Trump. Trump he was created, he was manufactured. So Tulsi Gabbard is manufactured. She talks an anti-military industrial shtick, but at the end of the day, she was fine with, she wanted to go into Iraq and bomb the shit out of Iraq and Palestine. So if you don't call out Tulsi Gabbard, and you don't call out Bernie Sanders, and you don't call out Booby Kennedy, and you don't call out Trump, one is misleading people back into the swarm. It's very easy
yeah.
to call out the Bushes. That's, that's like, it's no big deal. It's easy to call out the Rockefellers, but you must call out the not so obvious establishment, the wolf in sheep's clothing.
And they, of course, are way more subtle because they mostly say the right things. Though you make a very good point there, but not quite at the right time. So they get the credit for saying the right stuff
Later, much later.
later.
You ever,
Yeah.
if you talk to really people who studied the Bible, if you want, Lucifer sounds awesome. If you're, he's beautiful, he's handsome, he's very smart. I
Powerful.
mean, he's like the smartest person. But except this one little thing, he wants to overthrow God, right? Oh, well, he says a lot of great things, right? So you have to be critical, and it takes great courage to be critical if you want to lead and support a movement of working people rising up and shattering the swarm. But if you are fundamentally, it's just a shtick for you. Joe Rogan is just a shtick. He's an entertainer. Okay? Fucker Carlson didn't say shit when we exposed everything to him 2020. He made 20 million bucks a year. No one should feel sympathy for these people. These people are part of the CIA. They're part of the deep state. They are created to keep people connected. And this is what we teach people. And enough people are starting to get this. And when enough people get this, it's going to be over, because they typically have the obvious establishment and the not so obvious establishment. But we have created Truth, Freedom, and Health, the movement that is exposing this dynamic to keep people stuck. So, so we are very critical of people who do a lot of talking about truth, but they do not expose these characters, because these characters who talk stuff are like devils, because they are created by the swarm to keep people like Flytrap from fleeing and truly building a real bottoms up movement. Because
Yeah,
people, they want to take advantage of some of the 7 deadly sins of people, which is laziness. Oh, I got to go put a bumper sticker on my car? No, he's going to do it for me. Oh, I got to go hand out a flyer? Oh, they're going to take care of it. No, nothing has ever changed in the world without bottoms up movements. Women didn't get the right to vote in the United States without bottoms up movements. It was through raising consciousness and bottoms up movements. And the word movement is not just using the word movement or the word grassroots. A lot of these same characters start using the word grassroots, but they don't want anyone really building a movement. I'll give you an example. We have to go collect signatures to get on the ballot. We actually have working people collecting signatures. Booby Kennedy gets $20 million from Zionist hoodlums, and then he hires signature vendors. That's not a bottoms up movement.
no.
And people should call the day that enough people call out Booby, Trump, Tulsi Gabbard, Sanders, it's going to be over because those are the sheep that they put in. And they have a whole team of sheep that they're constantly training from Yale, from Harvard, etc., to present to people. And this dynamic is what people need to get. Rockefeller, 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 got it. You should talk about Booby Kennedy. You should talk about Trump. And then that is raising consciousness.
Yeah, I get it's a matter of reaching people. The problem is you have such a small percentage of people even aware of how the world is run, and what the main organizations are. Even
That's not true though, Ivor. What you said is that's a theory. That's
well,
false. Let
I
me give
know
you
if I go into Dublin onto the streets and 100 random people, I know what will happen if I ask them a series of geopolitical questions. They will repeat back to me what the Guardian or RTE in
right,
Ireland
but let me
tells
tell
them.
you that the reality is the following. There have been organizational theorists who've spent their lives' work in any group of an organization of like 100 people, whether it's an organization of pygmies, whether it's an organization of corporate leaders, whether it's an organization of tribal cultures, 30%, so around 30% of people will never change to anything you tell them. That's what you
Yeah.
perceive to go in a different, and it's that number.
Mm.
And then the other 70%, guess how they fall? 50% are watching the ping pong game, which way the ball goes. It is 20% of people who are change agents. That's one. So keep that one fact. Forget what theory says. That is the data out there from many, many anthropological studies. The other thing is many people have this illusion. Again, they're speaking from theory. They haven't been on the ground building movements. Well, one day when the shit hits the fan, then people will wake up. That's also not true. People get
No,
actually more
be too
oppressed.
late.
So it's too late. Exactly. So this is the time we have to build. So the strategy our view is you have to find the 20%. So a lot of people during the pandemic would go among the 30% who were wearing masks and getting boosters and trying to convince them. Meanwhile, there's 50 people who just passed by you who are part of your group who want to change things and you're not working with them. So the problem is many people claim they want change, make this very, very strategic mistake. They spend 80% of their time on convincing the 30% in their family, friends, etc. Very
It's
bad strategic mistake.
true. And I resonate so powerfully with that. I mean, it's like the reverse Pareto principle. It's crazy. But I had very similar numbers, and again, from the similar historical knowledge, but it was amazing to see it in real life. There were around 30% of people who were, wearing a mask in a car and just lost, and they worshipped the vaccine. There were even cartoons showing altars and worshipping a huge syringe. It was so funny to see. And then 50, 60% just kind of are watching, like you say, the ping pong and wondering what's going on. And then you have 20%, and I just refined it. There's a few percent only of people who are strongly realize COVID is utter nonsense and are willing to say it to the point of exposing themselves a little personally or in work. But there's another 10 or 12% who would be willing to be very vocal if they felt that they had a big enough percentage around them. It was really interesting to watch.
Right. But this is the nature of these sort of systems,
Mm,
okay? In these self-organizing systems. Now we educate people on this. Once people understand this, they have a very grounded view of how do you build a movement. The goal is there is a scientific set of principles, no different than principles to build this microphone. And because people think their opinion matters, it's all about opinion, I say, fuck your opinion. You can have your opinion, but there are actual scientific realities like this phenomenon. It comes out of system science. There are the realities that there's something called a disturbance. And we teach this when it took me 50 years to understand these principles. It's merging engineering system science with ancient systems of medicine. And what you find out are there fundamental engineering principles that can be used to build a movement. No different than you and I, the only reason we're communicating today like this is because something called Maxwell's equations, the laws of electromagnetism. So as an engineer and a scientist, as a serious engineer and a scientist, it's guys like me are not supposed to go into the world of politics. I've uncovered those principles. And if people really want to change the world, they have to sit their butt down and they have to study this as a scholar. And then they also have to get on the ground. But there's not going to be any change if you think things just happen. Change is no different than we would not have this iPhone today. It didn't just manifest itself. There's probably about 1 billion hours of scientific knowledge in this. The ceramic technology, the transistor technology. It's engineers who created this. And you have to have an engineer's mindset if we want to create and shatter the swarm. So, and that's what we teach people. We're looking for people who actually want to play the long game, who are serious. They're not grifting. They're not focused on the apparent, wolf, the wolf that comes right at you. We're looking to educate people on the real nature of this. But ultimately, the goal is, do people want to fundamentally change the world? And do they want that curve that's going down like this to go like that? If they're not interested in that, I'm not interested. If you're wearing 5 masks, I will gladly sell you 5 more masks. Give them masks. Don't, if they have gotten 2 boosters, give them 10. You're wasting your time because that shows you're more interested in convincing fools than building a movement to shatter those fools. You see, it's a fundamental question.
No, I agree, Dr. Shiva. Now, that really resonates as well. And my wife would get so angry with these people. And I say, forget about it. They're lost. You got to be corporate practical here. Focus on the people who can be swayed and who have some potential to...
But not even the people can be swayed. You have to focus on the people who've already gotten it and organizing them with systems theory. You see, a lot of people get it, but they think, oh, that guy's saying enough. I should, I have many, many examples. The best people that we find are people who got fucked by following Booby and giving him money, Booby Kennedy, fucked by Trump. Then they say, shit, nothing has happened. What are these? And then they're in a state of trying to really want to figure this out. They're self-reflective. Those people are wonderful students and they're ultimately wonderful leaders. It's like, I want to really fly an airplane. I want to really get off the ground. And, I see, and then you come to Bernoulli's principle and he says, oh, that's how flight works. Oh, I got to build this. I got to build a wing structure, you see? But if people aren't interested in that, it's like, you're not serious. It's like, you don't want to really be an aeronautical engineer. You don't want to really build stuff. You're just saying these words, movements, truth, da, 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 da. And you're saying that because you have an economic interest in keeping the existing system as it is. You do not want to fundamentally change the system, and you're not serious. We're looking for serious people who fundamentally want to put in the effort and the time. And what we're finding is they come from all different backgrounds. 60% are women, because women fundamentally have to take care of a household. No one's helping them out. They have to stand up on their own 2 feet. Men, in many ways, are pussies, many of them, because... Yeah. So it's a very interesting thing. They're willing to compromise. During the pandemic, it was women who were a large part of our movement who got all the videos I did. The men didn't get it. So
I think there's an additional factor there that I've noted over the years, that women can sometimes have a greater concern for the future for the children than men do. And men are more expedient in the short term, and they say, oh, I don't want to get into trouble here. Whereas women are truly outraged about where the world is going and what it'll mean for their offspring and their grandchildren. So I think there's a power there in women because they really care, in a sense.
Or people who've gone through a journey of some type of suffering, personally or otherwise. You will find that white bourgeois media people will never interview me. Yeah. Because they're part of it, like Fucker Carlson, even though, he and I have connected. The problem is women, people who've gone through a journey will want to have this conversation because they're ready for real, real distilled truth and what to do about it. Many of these podcasters and influencers have no interest in doing anything. It's just talking truth, talking truth is irrelevant to me anymore. When did you speak the truth? You know, do you want to do something about it?
I I view it in a sense, and I can see your perspective now, Dr. Shiva, and it is interesting. I'm going to ponder this. Um, but was seeing it as better than nothing that with a
Mm-mm.
large audience,
That's
or at
dangerous,
least,
man.
well, it is if they are organized opposition and they're a
No, no, no,
lightning
no, no, no,
rod.
no, no. It's dangerous. Let me tell you why. It's dangerous.
Is it not a
I'll give you.
continuum or a spectrum though, that
No,
there's some
no, no,
very
no,
bad
no, no,
organized up?
no.
No?
Those people are actually holding up change. If you look at a time axis of change, what is it? So the goal is if I were to draw a curve about human suffering going like this over time, the area under that curve is human suffering. Okay. So what we want to do, if you truly care about other human beings and you truly want to exhibit love, you want to reduce the time, right? Because more and more time goes on, right? So this is a central thing. All right. So if you want to do that as a person who wants to fundamentally see change from the suffering I've experienced and others have experienced, we want to reduce that time frame. So if you want
True.
to reduce the time frame, how do you do that? So I'll give you an example. Noam Chomsky, who I knew very well. Noam would give these lectures at MIT in the 80s on Israel or South Africa. 3,000 people show up and he put his hand like this and he'll give you details of all the truth, all the footnoted things. And this happened and that happened. And you know, ha ha ha, the US is an imperialist company, agency, that you're giving all the gross truth.
And the outrage, all of his outrage at it.
Well, his outrage was very sort of, it was in a very sort of, monotone way. So these people would come, some of them intellectuals, some of them young activists, and they're 18, 19-year-olds like me. And you'd hear this shit for 2 hours and you'd leave, fuck, you can't do anything. These people are so powerful. All right.
Ah.
Very important. Or you would hear the truth so much, it created something in your brain. It's a CIA technique called learned helplessness. It was created by the CIA. So the frontal lobe of your brain changes. You say, wow, they've been doing this for centuries. Wow, they've been doing this since Pharaoh's time. Wow. What happens is you say, well, I just can't do anything. The back of you basically admits you can't do anything. So I'll give you on the MIT campus, when MIT invested in South Africa, we ran one of the biggest demonstrations. Noam Chomsky was invited by one of our other colleagues to speak. And Noam was giving this ridiculous thing about, well, how we need to negotiate and this kind of shit. I booed him off the stage, even though he was one of my advisors. Because you have to understand, it's called learned helplessness. It's making things academic. It is not about reducing that time scale. Do you think Booby Kennedy has ever had suffering? No.
That is a problem. The privileged background is a big problem. And our best medical doctors and people in Ireland who stood up, and got burned during COVID, often working class backgrounds. One was the son of a bus driver, in a poor area of Dublin. And it was remarkable that signal that you could see. But
the point is, Ivor, that all of these people, you have to look at how if you were to watch their lives on a day-to-day basis, who do they hang out with? Where do they go? Jimmy Dore won't have me on because I'm mean. He's a f***er. He's a douchebag. He was defending Kennedy when I was exposing him. He says all the right things. The litmus test is A, will they speak out? I'm being very specific now. Against Zionist occupation of America. Number one. Number two, will they put me on their shows? What? I'm the inventor of email. I have a bunch of degrees at MIT. I've invented many things. So you won't put me on, but you'll put Booby Kennedy on and that is the second thing. And the third thing is, do they want to build a movement? They have no intention to do that. So I've started to tell podcasters, if you don't want to build a movement and you're not willing to really support the building of a movement, I'm not really here to come on your shows anymore. Because to me, it is about these three things. But telling truth, everyone is telling truth now. It's in vogue to talk about the truth. But what's the purpose of speaking the truth? Is to write a book to get book sales? Or is it to tell the truth at the right time to build a movement to the right people? So,
You know, Dr. Shiva, you started off with this, and I was kind of not fully in agreement because I thought that my approach had validity. I using all my corporate smarts, all my years as a manager with people manipulating, sadly, as you have to do in corporate management, and all my engineering and problem solving background. And I was using it all, and I was reaching a lot of people, and I am. And when you started talking in that way, I thought, hold on a minute. But I can see the merit in what you're saying now. And the learned helplessness is something I've been observing for quite some time. And I have people in the family who, luckily, my 5 children, my wife, and my close family are all 100% knowing of how the world works. So I don't have to put up with people within the family who are believing the nonsense in the media. But I have begun to say to them more and more, back off on all these podcasts, because I see them almost wallowing in the misery of these powerful groups.
Think about all these guys who are just putting pictures of babies getting blown up, and they're getting views.
Or whatever, or Joe Rogan is talking about the stuff, and that's good. And
He's the biggest. Joe Rogan is the biggest douchebag.
I don't want to personalize. I avoid that.
Igor, you have to personalize this.
Okay.
Let me tell you why you have to personalize this. My journey is my personal journey. You can't speak without emotions. My journey is what brought me here. Why did I was born into a lower caste system. Working class people are born into the elites want you to, well, don't personalize or make it very diplomatic. It's you. You can make it. You have the luxury of talking diplomacy because you can go back to Malibu, booby. You can go back to Mar-a-Lago. You see, this thinking, don't make it personal. That words itself, you have to ask yourself, where is that coming from? That's coming from the elites to make you think like that. You have to make it personal and you have to connect it to the collective. You have to make it personal and connect it to the collective. If you don't do that, you're a robot and you're being controlled. They do not want you to use these words. They do not want you to speak where your heart and your mind are connected. The intellectualism and the passion are not supposed to connect. And that's why these guys know, fuck, this guy has figured it out. He's educating people and he's telling people to use these words because my job as a good teacher, you ever watched the movie Planet of the Apes? All right.
Yeah, long time.
Okay, well, I feel like Caesar, that ape. Okay. So as I mentioned, this becomes important for other people to also become like Caesar. You have to break through all these. Look, I won one of the major ad awards with Nike and Calvin Klein. Okay, I know how to do marketing. I've learned all that shit. So no one needs, oh, Dr. Shiva, you should speak like this. I say, shut the fuck up. I'm not going to speak like that because that is done to keep you on the plantation. When you get off the plantation, you're trying to get other people off the plantation. And when you get off the plantation, you're off their plantation. You don't think like them anymore. You have to fully get off the plantation, Ivor. And when you get off the plantation, it is recognizing they have very powerful techniques, learned helplessness, limited hangouts, waiting 2 years to tell the truth, making movies about telling the truth, adorning themselves with Academy Awards for telling the truth. But they didn't do shit when the shit was hitting the fan, when you could have moved the truth in the right direction.
No, that is a very powerful point. Now, yeah, I'm going to have to think about this in a slightly different light. I viewed myself, and anyone watching, and many of my followers will be watching, and they'll see me, as I always am, being honest. I viewed myself as playing a relatively clever game, not to be smart-arsed about it, and playing all the corporate smarts and all the diplomacy and all the people manipulation stuff I may have learned over the years, and PR to try and reach as many people as possible to awaken them. But I can certainly see the point you're making, and I'm going to have to think about it. I always said in interviews, and it's true, and I often say, look in my eyes in an interview. This is what drives me. And the two things that drive me are, A, my 5 children and the future for the children. So if I see anything threatening that they can't have the free, lifestyle and free world that I had, that enrages me. And the second thing is truth and science and data, because I was 25 years complex problem solving specialist. And during those 25 years, I used to get in trouble in work because politics would come in and a certain cause was favored because it would make the Singaporeans the ones at fault. And I didn't like that. It drives me crazy. And you can imagine how COVID drove me crazy because every single thing was a technical lie. So that's where I've been coming from. But I need to reconsider somewhat my positioning and take on board what you're
But it's
saying. And
not
I will
about, it's
certainly.
not positioning. You see, you're being too, you know, trying to position yourself like a marketer. That's not what this is about. It's about people's lives.
Well,
I
I
mean,
mean, position myself as effective. How can I most effectively uphold?
Right. So the way you become, look at what we've done. It was our movement that got out to about 500 million people. We saved 200 million people's lives. We put vitamin D3 out at the right time. Zelenko stole all of our stuff. We put quercetin and zinc, and you can talk to people. Okay. You can go look at I started the Fire Fauci campaign. Booby waited a year. It's all out there. We did the right thing. We did the right thing at the right time.
Absolutely. Dr. Shiva, and I'll admit here that I've more recently become aware of you, and hence we're talking now. But that earlier stuff, I was in a world of my own in the first 6 months of COVID. So I was screaming about vitamin D because I gave lectures on it 10 years ago, and that was in late March. But that was only in my tiny way. But what you just referred to, I wouldn't have been aware of personally.
Yeah, I mean, we got it out to about it. You can go look at the views. One of my videos on vitamin D3 got 100 million views, okay, before it was taken down.
Oh, wow. Okay.
March of 2020. Okay.
Okay.
We were the ones who wrote the song, right? My point is they have actively, because during that period, before the censors came in, we got out everywhere. All right. So I was in the thick of it from the election fraud. We started the hashtag Fire Fauci campaign. These people waited. So when I say you have to tell the truth at the right time, these people are fuckers. They waited purposely to treat people learned helplessness.
Now, that's really, really interesting. I was not aware of that.
Yeah, you can look at it. In March 2020, March 23rd, we wrote the letter to Trump. We said, do not lock down the country. Here's a solution. That's an MIT scientist. The White House called me back. I've met with Trump multiple times. You have to understand that we are the true agents of change. So the next crisis that comes up, are people going to be dumb fucks again? The issue is, what do you do at the right time? And what do you do at the right time? What's that?
You need, to your point, actually, Dr. Shiva, you need enough people standing up at the right time, because
you need enough people standing up the right way at the right time.
True.
And the tip of that spear is calling out the not so obvious establishment. It was not only we called out Fauci, we also at the same time in March of 2020, we were exposing Kennedy and Trump. You see, we exposed both of them. And you can see all of that. That's why people have great respect for what we say, because it takes people time. They look back at my history or the history of our movement. Wow, these guys always said the right things at the right time.
And that is so important, because thankfully, thank God, I benefit from the same thing that people still say on Twitter. Fat Emperor, me, was saying this in March 2020, and a lot of these other guys didn't come in for ages. But you see, I was too small to make a big impact, whereas you obviously.
But the reality now, Ivor, given what we've had the discussion, you must expose, if you're serious and you want me to, I like you, your team, but I can't take people seriously who say, like, there's some movement woman I just met. She's saying, oh, I'm for medical freedom. Or have you exposed Kennedy? No, because she wants his viewers so she can sell something. You say? She's not.
Would it be
not
fair
about,
to say,
Well, so what I'm saying, medical freedom now, that word is so diluted. You see, at a certain point, everyone's standing for medical freedom, but they've become part of the swarm. The swarm is very clever at absorbing even radical things and smoothing, glossing it over. Very, very clever.
That That is true. I mean, it's the goldfish in the tank doesn't even know he's in the water. It's just all around him. But two opposing ideas somewhat. All of what you said, absolutely valid. And I'm going to have to think more about this. On the other hand, however, a huge number of people, I would say, are involved in these organizations that may be led as organized opposition, but a huge number of people may really not be in it for clicks, not in it as shills. They really feel they're part of something that's opposing globalism. But as you say, in a sense, they've been duped somewhat.
That's the job by design.
Which is kind of the intention of the bad guys, of course. It comes back together.
So what happens is, over time, as long as you're consistent and you tell the truth at the right time and you're mobilizing people, it's just going to be a matter of time. Because people are going to realize this. So we have many people. A woman went to some booby event and she said he completely separated people. She had to sit in the back and she said, everything you said was absolutely correct. We had another guy who's a medical doctor who's going to give $25,000 to Kennedy. And he was big follower of Joe Rogan. And I did a video exposing Rogan because, he follows me and have various interactions through his proxies. Okay. He never says the right thing at the right time. He waited 2 years, 3 years on GMOs, waited 2 years on vax. But when it's convenient and he can get views and clicks, he does it. Okay. So this guy saw this video where I was exposing Joe Rogan in a very deliberate and scientific way. And also Kennedy. This guy at least was self-reflective. He said, I saw your video. I couldn't sleep for 2 days because everything you said was true. I had cognitive dissonance. And that's sort of where you're at right now. You see? And when people overcome that, it's a transformational experience because now they have to really own what they're saying. They're actually saying, I'm truly committed to changing the world. It's not just an abstract concept. For many of these people, causing dynamic change and reducing human suffering, the learned helplessness is clicked in. They have a process of manipulating people. On the Truth, Freedom, and Health site, we have a very nice diagram. Again, this is another diagram that I put together to educate people, okay? If you go to Truth, Freedom, and Health, and you should become a warrior scholar, I encourage it because you'll learn a lot. It's like a PhD in system science. But when you go here, one of the graphs I have, can you see this screen?
Yeah, Freedom, Health.
Yeah.
Oh, so there's your video.
Yeah, so everyone should go watch these videos, right? But one of the things you'll see here, these are examples of people who are everyday working people. And you'll see that we actually win. Now, this is what's going on. No matter how much information, quote unquote, truth is out there, look what's actually going on. I don't give a fuck about, quote unquote, I'm a truther now, okay? Look at the reality of what the quote unquote sharing truth is actually doing there, Ivor. Do you see that?
Yeah. Oh no, it's
2.5 billion people are getting obese.
Yeah.
Close to 3/4 of a million people are depressed. 51% of children feel hopeless. And the reason is this information, quote unquote, truth is being put through the lens of ignorance. And people after a while, they watch all these videos, they get confused. And eventually they get desperate, or they compromise for the left or the right, or they get complacent. That's one phenomenon. And who are the people who are delivering this quote unquote truth? It's these people. These are the machinery of ignorance because they take a left view or a right view. They give, these are the real sheep. I mean, I could put Biden and the Bushes. That's easy. The Rockefellers. But these people are created by the swarm. And you have to expose these people. And once the real way out of all of this is knowledge. Now, to do knowledge, you have to do this exposing. You have to interconnect these facts. Knowledge is different than ignorance. It leads to wisdom. Now you realize you have to get off your butt and you have to do stuff. But people don't get here, just through being smart. It's not like intuitive. You have to educate people on this dynamics. And so I've had to create that world, just like email. The educational platform is in it. You learn system science. We've created a community. We've created all these tools. So we've had to do the hard work of educating people on these fundamental ideas. It is not intuitive to understand the laws of electromagnetism. There's this other false theory. Well, you know, it's intuitive. No, it isn't. Flying is not intuitive. Using a microphone is not intuitive. You've had to understand the physics of these things. So if you want to change the world, it's not quote unquote, you just intuit it. There is dynamics. You have to get to the point where, and we don't need a lot of people. You see, you need enough Malcolm X's, even just 1,000 in every country. And it's over because you have to expose the not so obvious establishment. It is easy to expose the obvious establishment.
Yeah. And you've very well elucidated and articulated that, Dr. Shiva, I must say. And the websites, I'll put them on the screen because I need to absorb this a little now. I need to think through this, look at the website, watch your video. But I always get the truth out there, get the conversations out there, get the ideas out there. So I'm the opposite of sensorial. So this goes out and everyone watching it can go. I think the key thing is to go to your website, use their critical thinking, absorb the information, think about it, and maybe get a new perspective.
Well, so in order to support that development, first of all, we have truthfreedomhelp.com. There's 2 videos people should watch. You know, the second thing they need to do is to come to one of our open houses, 11 a.m. and 8 p.m. And people will then see these other people. And they'll say, wow, people say, yeah, I followed Trump and I did this and I did that. I ran for office, da, 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 da. And now they're at a point where they know that it's like someone trying to say, yeah, I jumped off the cliff and I hurt myself trying to fly. Then I put some feathers on me. That didn't work. Well, maybe you need to understand Bernoulli's principle. You see, you have to get
aerofoils.
Right. But until you understand that, you will not be able to, it's not intuitive to fly. People tried for thousands of years. Bernoulli had to solve this problem of lift and velocity. Okay. And that's the problem I have solved. With all humility, I've solved it. And if people think it's arrogant, fuck off. That's what I've done. Because this has been my life's journey, because I did not like the fact that a small set of people manipulate 8 billion people. And that there's immense harm that does to humanity because we're forgetting all these great innovations we could have, all these great problems we could solve, but most importantly, shrink the time to end human suffering. And if you truly are a loving human being, that's what you're about. You're not about, well, you know, he said some good things. You know, majority of people, I don't give a fuck what good people, what things they say. Shakespeare's all about that. Shakespeare's all about in Hamlet, Polonius saying, to thy own self be true, to Laertes. Well, he was the biggest scumbag. He never was true to anyone. So just because people say the right things, all these gurus say all the right things, meanwhile, they're pedophilia, right? The Vatican says all the right things about Christ. Meanwhile, they're pedophilia fanatics, right?
Yeah, I mean,
so it doesn't matter what you say. It is, are you doing the right thing at the right time? Action, action, action. And that is reality. And if you're not about doing the right things and just talking truth, please go work at the Vatican. Please go work at some academic institution, because they tell the truth to manipulate people to enslavement. They never tell the truth at the right time. Alan MacDonald, the guy who spoke the truth in 1986, who said, I will not sign off on the space shuttle going up. He was a director on the project for NASA. He said the O-rings have never been tested. He was maligned. He was attacked. He died a couple of years ago. He said the most important thing in life is to tell the truth, say the right thing at the right time. So fuck you, fucker Carlson. You didn't say anything about the fact that we had discovered the backdoor portal into Twitter in 2020. In a lawsuit, I represented myself and I won. He concealed it. Glenn Greenwald concealed it. You have to be critical of these motherfuckers. They are not interested in building the movement. They want to go to the right parties. They want to talk about toast their martinis, how they're helping the poor. It is really disgraceful. I know these people. I used to live in Hollywood, okay? I know all of these people. I've been at the highest levels of academia. So you're talking to someone who was like a Forrest Gump in their worlds. And I was offered many ways to be co-opted, but I hate these fucking people because they prosper on suffering. They're like suffering pimps. They talk about it because it's interesting for them. It's academic. It's not real. It doesn't affect them. I invented email as a 14-year-old kid. I had to go through the suffering of being called a curry-stained Indian who will be beaten and hanged. I had to undergo that. So my suffering is connected to the suffering of the collective. So you have to speak about how it affects you personally and how it affects you collectively. You have to intersect that, and that is a personal journey. Don't let anyone tell you, don't speak with anger, don't get upset. You should tell them to go fuck themselves because they have not suffered. The average majority of humanity suffers every day. And those people are who I speak for. And we are organizing those people. And if you want to do that, great. But if you want to make this academic and diplomatic and some marketing exercise to hit the right target group, great. I'll show you how to do that over here. We can do data analytics all day to hit your right market groups. But that's not what this is. That's in the swarm's plantation view of the world. We're taking people off the plantation. That's why when we say off the plantation, when we did that Shatter the Swarm video, they do not want to see someone like me who came from below being one of us. I was supposed to be an MIT professor, co-opted. Didn't happen. Sorry.
Yeah, well, Dr. Shiva, this was illuminating, I must say, because
Well, get involved. Ivor, you're in UK. We have an amazing group of people all over England, close to 3,000 people. You should get involved. You should learn some of these very important knowledge, and it will make you an agent of change, in a true agent, and connect with people in a very profound way. Handing out a flyer in the cold and meeting people gives you this experience where you raise your consciousness. It's action, experience, consciousness. It's not just being aware. How many yogis are aware? They see the light, they've left the bodies, they've seen this. That's not what we're talking about.
yeah,
That's in fact that's a very limited view of enlightenment. You say?
Yeah, oh no, I do indeed. So you know what, and you've also given me material. I'm going to have to absorb all this, and for next week in the UK, I'm going to incorporate some of this in your website into my talk, and I'm going to offer this kind of slightly different perspective on trying to beat the swarm / globalists or whatever, which we're all at. But first I'm going to absorb it, I'm going to internalize it, I'm going to go through all the stuff in your website, and then I'm going to integrate it in my own little way.
Yeah,
and,
if
I'll
you're
get
doing
back to you on
something
it.
for your audience, play the Shatter the Swarm video. It's like 10 minutes. It will profoundly change them because it is a deep video. That video took me 50 years to do.
And this is the short version of your 40-minute long.
Yeah, but if you go to truthfreedomhealth.com, you'll see it right on the top. Or you can go to shattertheswarm.com.
Yeah, no, I'll download it, and you know what I'll do, and I'll tell people at the start of this interview that at the end, I will put that into this video of our interview and incorporate it. That's what I'll do.
Because the goal here is to educate, scholar, mets et manus, right? Mind and hands. You have to walk the walk. And this is the way the world is. In the ancient spiritual traditions, they would say that this period that we're living in is a world of Maya, massive illusion. That is the world where people will talk all sorts of stuff, all sorts of things, but the truth will be basically presented as truth, in fact, spoken truth, but it will be brought to you by evil. Evil will speak truth.
And the truth spoken at the wrong time.
Or truth spoken without any intention to do anything about. Truth spoken without any intention to ever do anything about it.
Yeah. And I have observed myself, though not in this exact way, that afterwards when it comes out, I'm on one hand delighted that it's come out, and then I'm massively disappointed that it makes no difference because it's after the event. It drives me crazy.
So you look at, that's what they wanted. I'm an activist, man. I have understood this theory. That's why you have to hit it while the metal's hot, You have to nail it right at the right time.
Something I think you'd agree with, Dr. Shiva, now, in my own little way, that does link to what you're saying. people are going on and on about the vaccine, and I keep trying to tell them it's yesterday's war. And sadly, anyone who suffered from the vaccine, right? Okay, it's terrible, but we were saying it before they released the vaccine.
Right. And now all these guys are just making money off of it. It's like,
There is that too, which
no,
I didn't
it
focus
is
on
the
as
economic models. You have to
Yeah.
look at all these grifters. They're connected to an economic model of talking of an economic model, which is not to actually mobilize people into action. If there's one economic model that we have, it's to mobilize people into action, to shatter the swarm. So more people can benefit globally. That is our economic model, to shatter the swarm. That is the only economic model we have.
Now, and I just, something occurred to me. I went to Stockholm in Sweden to interview Dr. Jakob Nordengard, a great man. Now, he does focus on the story of Rockefeller through to WEF UN and the climate nonsense and where it came from, so people understand. But he also, interestingly, he's heavily focusing on what's coming, making people aware of the Pact for the Future, September 24, the World Health regulations and the pandemic treaty. So he's actually focusing on trying to tell people about what's coming now down the track and what they need to be aware of now. Yeah. So he's
and there's many things coming now. The issue is, do people want to mobilize? See, in some ways, it's like giving projections. That's okay. But do you want to mobilize people to end these things now? You see, that's a very different question.
Yeah. No, I agree totally. The reason I said it was I said to him, he lost his job as, I think, assistant professor in April, but luckily he's getting by with book sales and stuff. But I said to him, that's tough, Jakob, now, you're losing your job. And he said, but Ivor, I have no choice.
Yeah.
And he was completely honest. I have no choice. I must.
Like him, and I'm telling you, if I were to tell you that you're doing a lot of videos on how we could fly and where flight make, and I said, Ivor, I actually have the education that you can go through to learn how to build an airplane. But you're still talking about flying. And if you don't take that, I could say, well, the guy's really not interested in flying. He just wants to talk about flying.
Yeah.
So a guy like Jakob, you and others, they should get involved, because we're creating a global organization from Asia to Australia, and it's independent. It's bottoms up. So we have the force and the courage to say fuck you to people, because we're not in the left or right camp. And this is what concerns them. So their only option is to make us invisible. That's their only option, because they can't call off this. They can't call off this. You see, this is unfortunate for them, but that's
you cannot be bought. And that these days is probably one of the most important qualities a person can have where we are in the world today. Well, you know what, Dr. Shiva, I know you have to get back to so much stuff. I'm going to put your links there to websites, and I'll put them on the screen in big capitals. And I'm going to finish this conversation by rolling straight into your 10-minute short video on the swarm.
Yeah, you should do Shatter the Swarm. I think people really enjoy it.
Yeah.
A lot of value out of it. And then, people should go and become a member, a warrior, a supporter of the movement for truth, freedom, health. It's a global movement. And in the United States, everyone should go get one of these bumper stickers at minimum. And if you want to be a little more courageous, go download the flyer and start handing it out to people, right? Have conversations with people. That's what needs to happen. People need to have conversations. We've created enough vehicles and come to the open house. All right, Ivor, thank you.
Thanks so much, Dr. Shiva. Best of luck. We'll talk soon and circle back on this topic.
Okay, be well.
I know. Hell of a conversation, eh? Well, as promised, I'm now going to follow with the 15-minute summary of The Swarm by Dr. Shiva. Enjoy.
Good evening, everyone. It's Dr. Shiva Ayyadurai. How a very small set of people control 8 billion people. This is what I call the elite. Let's say there's about 10,000 of them. How is it these people are able to manipulate the 8 billion people here? If you talk to a lot of naive people, they think, oh, it's the Rothschilds over here, or it's the aliens. They don't understand. It's not any one individual. It's not any one organization. There's something called swarm intelligence. If you watch all those birds flying together, not any one of them is in control. They move together as a unit. They're closely knit. They're quote unquote telepathic, but they move with a singular goal. The goal of the elites here is power, profit, and control. This is the goal. So if we look at it from a control system, what are the inputs they're sending into this system to achieve their goals? And what is the output that they seek? So if you're an elite over here and you're looking at those 8 billion people, how do you know you're achieving your goal? Are people getting fat, meaning unhealthy? Are people getting dumb, which means ignorant? Are people happy, which means are they being entertained? Are people divided? Are they isolated, disconnected? They don't want people here connecting with each other. Are people feeling helpless? Are people looking to the elites to save them? And they like that. They like when people here are looking to them, the enemy here, for their saviors. They really love that. They want people to be disorganized, and they definitely want people to be helpless. This is what they want. If you do not want to unite among people here and find who your own leaders are from below, they are quite happy. They're achieving their goal. Power, profit, and control. Now, how do they do this? You're going to realize it's not any one group. It's an interconnected, tightly knit group. They're all closely interconnected. In fact, they all go to the same restaurants. They have all their kids going to the same equestrian shows. They all shop at the same place. They all go to the same parties. You're not part of that. So who are these people? And what are the institutions of power that they have? Well, first of all, they have academia. Harvard, Oxford, Yale, MIT, IIT in India, the top 100 university presidents. These people are on boards of companies, but it's about 100 people who run the major universities in the world. NGOs, or nonprofits. These are people who run these huge nonprofit organizations like the Clinton Global Initiative, WEF, World Economic Forum, Center for Foreign Relations. And there's many other institutions like these, but it's the CEOs of these institutions. And these guys know each other. They definitely work together. The next thing you have is you have government, US senators, prime ministers of countries, advisors to government, think tanks, the Belfer School at Harvard, the Stanford Internet Observatory. They created the censorship infrastructure. This includes CIA, right? Intelligence organizations. And again, all these people know each other. They're interconnected. They're a swarm. They're tightly knit. They're not divided like these people over here. They're not disconnected. They're highly interconnected. So these people are focused on power. But then you also have a whole nother people, the CEOs of the global 2000 companies, other big organizations like big pharma companies, Pfizer, big agriculture companies like Syngenta, big investment companies, JP Morgan. You put Deutsche Bank here. You put Epstein down here. Okay, he was involved in all this. You also have the Fed, the central banks. All these people party together. When I say party together, I mean literally they party together, guys. Absolute close-knit friends. And in fact, the CEO of a global 2000 company will easily move to one of the investment companies down here. If you look at Target, big companies like Anheuser-Busch and Exxon, you'll find that at one point they were in one of these investment companies, and these investment companies sit on the board of these companies and they shuffle back and forth. So this is all about making money, right? These people are about making the dollar. These people are all about power. This is profit. And then fundamentally, you have control. Hollywood over here. This includes celebrities. You have their agents, Hollywood agents, like Ari Emanuel, as I've talked about, who's a guy who controls most of Hollywood. He controls Worldwide Wrestling Federation, the MMA, etc. The media companies. This includes Disney, Viacom. This includes now Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. These are large media companies. Google, you can put in there also. You also have big news stations, CNN, Fox. And combined with this, now we have another group, social media influencers. This is like Joe Rogan, Tucker Carlson, these characters who have come in, but they do not exist without support from these guys. If you notice, overnight, a bunch of social media influencers have come out of nowhere. And these people are created by these people. So when you look at this, the academics, the NGOs, the government, the think tanks, the investment companies, the Fed, the big pharma, the CEOs, the Hollywood celebrities, media, social media influencers, and the news companies, and you can even take the top 10 of each one of these, they all know each other, everyone. And in order to manipulate these people, they need front men to manipulate these people with policies. Because what comes out are policies. These are the inputs they put into the system, propaganda. They feed these people purposely, people who they tell them are going to save them, like the Elon Musks or Trump or the Kennedys. Now, who are the people part of the swarm that does that? They have the obvious establishment. And these people are like the Clintons or the McConnells or the Obamas or the Bushes or the Queen of England. Typically people say, oh yeah, those guys are part of the establishment. But one of the things we teach at Truth, Freedom, Health, the most insidious people are what I call the not so obvious establishment. These are the people that are created to make sure that the 8 billion people look to the elites to save them. Trump, he's got a golden toilet. Mar-a-Lago, Kennedy's, completely bogus family. You can look at historically people like Gandhi or people like MLK. These people all came and were endorsed by the swarm. These people do not exist. They live in Malibu. They live in the places of the elites. And these people are the ones that are used to send the inputs of this controller. In system science, these are the controllers. These are the people controlling the inputs that go in. And remember, their goal is to make sure people are in the state of division, disconnection, and helplessness, particularly. They're observing all this. They have their sensors. And one of the features that they notice is that as long as people are in dysfunction and diseased mentally, physically, emotionally, they're happy. Well, what are those diseases these days? We see obesity. We see endocrine disruption, men with low testosterone, and people questioning their sexuality. We also see people with cancer. The world's population's life expectancy is going down. The United States is going this way, and this from 1980 to 2020. They like this. This is life expectancy. In fact, when they see dysfunction, you know what they do? They put another input in, which is normalize the dysfunction. Eat sugars and high fructose food. Well, over here, people have been literally getting fat. It's led to obesity. Or they've been putting in foods that are affecting people's gut microbiome. This is what I call from policy to biology. People are getting worse and worse. They're actually making more money because the obesity now creates obesity drugs. The endocrine disruptors, let's talk about this. This will really explain what's going on with Bud Light. About 20 years ago, there was research done at the universities that clearly showed the use of restricted use pesticides like atrazine and other chemicals in the atmosphere actually cause endocrine disruption, which could reduce male testosterone, which could also affect mammals where the sex organs can change. And this was done by the work of Tyrone Hayes. So if you're over here at a university and you find out one of your researchers discovered that, and you are playing golf with people over here at Syngenta is the one who produced atrazine, they're going to say, hey man, we don't want this research coming out, because you have to understand something. The investment community here is investing in all of these companies. So if you're one of these large investment companies, you're moving trillions of dollars. $600 trillion, by the way, move through the economy every day. You as one of the elites managers of money, you're moving all this money. You know all of these people. You know the CEO of Target, you know the CEO of Anheuser-Busch, you know the CEO of Pfizer and Syngenta. And imagine that you see, wow, the stuff that we've been creating is causing sexual disruption changes. You're seeing a phenomenon where more and more people are questioning their sexuality. And what you want to do is you want to make sure that the general public doesn't understand this, because if they did, they would awaken to something that's going on from the decisions you made. So you call up your friend, Bud Light, he goes, hey, look, let's run a campaign. Let's normalize trans. Let's exploit a willing person to be exploited like this Dylan Mulvaney. Let's put them on as a poster boy for Bud Light, and let's push them out there because we want the attention to normalize a dysfunction, because the goal is to make sure they don't lose their trillions over in Syngenta. They're willing to take $1 billion hit over here, but they want to save their trillions in big pharma and big ag, because they're all part of the same family. They all do favors for each other. And then again, you would go do it at Target. You try to normalize it because you don't want people over here to understand the bigger picture. But you are interconnected. You could strike deals left and right. Let's do a marketing campaign in here. Let's normalize. Same thing if you can look at what's going on in obesity. All these pharma companies are making big money from obesity drugs, but there's movies on Netflix and Amazon promoting fat people as a norm. What's happening over here, you have people who are pro-fat and people who are anti-fat people. You have people who are pro-woke and anti-woke, and they don't care. So you have a bunch of these idiots writing books against woke companies and anti-woke companies. You have people creating apps, only shop at anti-woke companies, don't go to woke companies. But you guys understand that these guys don't give a damn? They're making money anyway. The investment bankers are going to make money from woke companies and anti-woke companies. But what's occurring here is people are being divided. These guys are happy because they're inputting policies and propaganda. People here are being divided, and that is the goal, to achieve power, profit, control. So as long as these people work together as a swarm to control the policies and the propaganda, and they provide false heroes, and they're using the Trumps, the Kennedys, and Gandhis, all of them who talk a big game, their goal is to make sure that you never understand this, that you keep thinking, oh, Kennedy's going to solve the problem. Trump is going to solve the problem. They don't want you to be leaders in your own communities. They want you to outsource your future to people like Trump or Kennedy, because they're part of the swarm. And you keep getting more unhealthy, more ignorant, more entertained. But most importantly, you are divided. People here don't organize themselves to smash these people up. And this is is the history of human oppression. They have it down to a system, a goal, they have a controller, they have specific inputs, and they manipulate billions of people to achieve this state. They produce dysfunction. They don't give a damn if you die. The life expectancy in the United States, your children are going to die sooner than you, and they've achieved their goal. They don't give a damn. Do you understand? These people are eating organic foods. They get the best restaurants. They get the best insurance. They get the best healthcare, and this is what they want to achieve. And that's how they're controlling people. The other way they're controlling you is they want you to keep looking to the elites like Trump and Kennedy and all these people to save you. They want you to look to the swarm. They do not want you to ever support a Malcolm X or a Dr. Shiva or you. They don't want you to become leaders. And this is a goal. As long as you're divided, as long as you're looking over here, you're going to achieve their goal of power, profit, and control. So what's the way out? How do we win? The first way we win, everyone's got to be aware of the science of systems. Without this understanding, there are goals, there are controllers, there are systems, there are intelligence, and there are dumb systems. You are never going to break out of this because you will think everything is, oh my God, we got to talk about aliens and UFOs and flat earth or this. All those may be interesting topics, but they don't come down to the fundamentals of understanding this. And the only way out of this is people here have got to understand the principles of system science. And the good news is you can learn this at Truth Freedom Health. So first of all, learn these principles at Truth Freedom Health. That's the only place. This is my gift to people. We've made it accessible to all your children. Any person who goes through the course, you can give it to your children. Anyone can learn this. But the goal is go to Truth Freedom Health and you will understand the science of systems. So we've created that weapon. And with this weapon, this is a hammer here, we have a way to smash this swarm. But without the understanding of this, without you understanding this system science, without you understanding the knowledge of systems, you will never break out of this. Please volunteer. Go to shivaforpresident.com, volunteer. And by the way, when you donate, I don't like to take people's money for nothing. I give you books and courses and access to the entire community at truthfreedomhealth.com. So please take advantage of that if you want to donate. But if you don't want to donate, volunteer. We're going to be getting on the ballot in all the states. So we need people on the ground. So go to Shiva for President, numeral for president.com and volunteer, volunteer, volunteer. Our campaign is about mobilizing you. We have a whole program that we want to train you to be a leader. So we get connected. We're no longer helpless. We stop looking to these fools like Kennedy and Trump and all these other people because where have they gotten us? They are part of the system to increase power, profit, and control. This is why a small set of people, the elites, to keep getting richer and richer off the backs of people. This is why these people are able to control you because they make you disconnected and divided in a very, very systems way. This is the science of systems that they're using. There's about 10,000 people that learn this science. This is not accidental, everyone. What I'm here to tell you is once you understand the engineering physics here, we can smash these people and make a society where people are decentralized but connected. We're no longer divided, but we're united with the interests that we have to face their propaganda and destroy them and to no longer follow false heroes. And that's what this is about. Because the way we're going now, as I've talked about, those in power want to kill you. It's not a hyperbole. They want to kill you. The movement for Truth, Freedom, Health and our campaign for Shiva for President is about making sure you live long and prosper. And the only way to do it is you have to become aware of this, recognizing that there's a systems process. Fortunately, truthfreedomhealth.com exists. I wish I didn't have to go do this. In fact, our parents should have done this for us. But anyway, Truth Freedom Health exists. Our campaign exists. So go to shivaforpresident.com, become a volunteer, become a warrior scholar at truthfreedomhealth.com. Every Thursdays at 11 a.m. and at 8 p.m. I do a open house and we have our 8 p.m. town halls for our campaign. Please join them. You can RSVP at vashiva.com/orientation. The other important you can do where we start taking control of our lives, that you start supporting one of us. I'm one of you, leaders, bottoms up. I didn't grow up in a Kennedy compound. I didn't grow up with golden plated toilet seats. I grew up like you guys. And as a part of that, make sure that you share this video. Hit the share button. Make sure you retweet it. Make sure you click the notify. Make sure you put comments on, because you know that I've been exposing their false heroes, Elon Musk and the Kennedys and all their not so obvious establishment people. So their retribution is to shadow ban me. My tweets used to get 500,000 views per day. Today, I'm lucky if I get 5,000 views per day. And then they put keywords if something starts going viral to stop that. So the way you can help is sign up as a volunteer so we get on the ground. The future is offline. I need you to go share these videos, get it out there, and become a Truth, Freedom, Health warrior. That's the ways you guys can help, contribute. Anyway, there you go. So anyway, I hope this is valuable. Be the light, shivaforpresident.com, truthfreedomhealth.com. Thank you, everyone. Be well. Be the light. Have a good night. Have a good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are.
Well, there you have it, folks. He's on fire, isn't he? And I hope you noticed that I didn't roll over and accept all of his points. You know, I considered them. But please comment down below on what you thought of this kind of conversation, debate / agreement in many aspects. And as always, thanks so much to my Patreons and PayPal supporters. You're the guys who keeps the train on the track and gets me to get these great guests and to really help explain how the world works. And anyone else who can continue to support or perhaps jump on board, really appreciate it. The links are down below. So until next time, that'll do it, folks.